The Jags are headed towards greatness, but it's a long road to get there. Can they take that last little leap in order to be great? I'll tell you why it's important to thank everyone, including Trent Baalke, along the way. We'll talk about it here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Jaguars. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast that you can find wherever you get your podcast, whether you watch or listen. Make sure you tap in each and every day so you do not miss an episode of the show, an episode like this one that is sponsored and brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox, no console needed. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. Shout out to the everydayers for joining us here every single day on Locked On Jaguars. We have every reason to be happy right now with the with the Jaguars and their draft. We appreciate you making us your first listen to celebrate it. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about holes on the team. Perceived holes on the team. And there are always holes on every team, even the Philadelphia Eagles that won the Super Bowl, because as we talked about earlier this week, we are in perpetual motion to always improve the football team. That's something that we're learning, but I think they're getting better. And I'm going to tell you in the middle where those signs of improvement come from with the team, while mentioning that sometimes improving means just maybe not adding something, but maybe not continuing to ride with something that you already have. We'll talk about that. Mention Devin Lloyd not getting his fifth-year option, but the pursuit of greatness is where we'll start at the top. You know, it's a rare thing where someone can be doing multiple things at one time, walking and chew bubblegum at the same time. And usually in the art of team building, and that's where we are right now with the Jaguars, and trying to improve a football team, everyone takes what they call this measured approach, right? And I'm one of those people that believe in that. I think you have to be really, really measured and take your time and fix the infrastructure of the team and be patient. It's your first year and we ain't got to shake up too much stuff, man. Just kind of go about it, be sound in what you do and let things fall to them or fall to you. That is not the case with James Gladstone and these Jacksonville Jaguars, and I'm happy. You see, I'm almost 56 years old, but I'm not one of those people that think that everything that I believe is always the way things are supposed to be, right? And then you get this young, smart kid coming in here, and you get Tony Pacelli, you get Liam Cohen, and you get the thing that you've been asking for. You've been asking for alignment, right? You've been asking for somebody to come in here and say, you know, hey, man, we need to attack this thing with aggression, but we need to be smart about it. We need to learn how to team build, and we need everybody on the same page. You asked for it, you got what you wanted. But everything that you asked for ain't going to always come wrapped the way you want it. And the Jaguars are not being measured alone. I think they're being very measured when it comes to free agency. I think when they built their coaching staff, they were very intentional and deliberate on who they wanted, how they wanted them, and how they were going to go by it, about it. And I think they were living in the moment enough, and this was even before they hired Gladstone, before they hired Liam Cohen. Shad Khan was living in the moment enough to the point where it made him change his mind on how he was doing business. And he fired Trent Baalke and brought this new staff in, right? They gave me what I wanted, but then the way that these guys went about their business is totally different. I had no idea they were going to trade up for Travis Hunter. I had no idea they were going to give up a first-round pick. I had no idea that they were going to actually do something that I suggested that they do. I said, this team needs 4 or 5 offensive linemen. They got them. So in seeing that they agreed with something that I have been screaming from the rafters for 3 years about, it doesn't mean that they did everything. And that's where the learning part of this comes in. The pursuit of greatness is just that. There's more than one way you're going to have to do it. There's more than one thing to attack. You don't have to attack one thing at one time. So while the Jaguars went out in free agency and got 2 starters on the offensive line and then 2 depth pieces, while they went and grabbed secondary players, players that play in the secondary. I don't even want to sound like they're not primary players. But I'm talking about the secondary in terms of the defensive back room. They went and got people that weren't even on the Jaguars trestle board, right? I wanted them to go get Nate Hobbs, but I said they don't need a nickel. Then they go get Jordan Lewis, and he's a nickel. Who's going to play outside some, but he's a nickel. So I had the right position, but I had the wrong player. You can't get upset about that. You just have to understand it and look at it for what it is. They have added pure speed and playmaking at the wide receiver position and at the cornerback position. Dyami Brown and Travis Hunter are fast. Travis Hunter, again, being mentioned as a DB along with Jordan Lewis and with Eric Murray, are three guys that play with their feet on fire. And then the Jaguars go in the draft and draft another fast defensive back. And then another one that's a turnover machine that has ultra discipline because he was playing at the Naval Academy. The pursuit of greatness doesn't have to go down one road. They're attacking it from everywhere. Infrastructure and free agency, shoring up the offensive line, adding speed, adding scheme-specific defensive backs that fit the personality and fit schematically what this organization wants to do moving forward with Anthony Campanile and the staff, the high-energy staff that they hire. And they did it by not sitting back and being bold, and they did it not bold. They did it by not sitting back and not being bold. They did it by actually being bold, and I applaud them for it. And this is what the pursuit of greatness actually looks like. The difference between James Gladstone, Super Bowl winning exec, and Doug Peterson, Super Bowl winning coach. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because everybody's like, oh, yeah, he won a Super Bowl, but we just had a guy who won a Super Bowl. No, you had a coach who won a Super Bowl from an organization that since he left 8 years ago has been back to 2 Super Bowls and now the current Super Bowl champion. It kind of means that Doug didn't have a whole bunch to do. I'll give him his credit for his part. But for them to get rid of him 2 years later, they basically said, dude, we could do this without you. And they did it. All right. And they did it. And it was with like some of the same players, but a lot of different players. It ain't like Dallas back in the day where they fired Jimmy and 2 years later they won the Super Bowl with Barry Switzer, but they did it with Jimmy's players. Okay. And this isn't the same situation. This isn't the same situation at all. This isn't about a guy coming in here to a team that's won a Super Bowl before. It's about a dude coming in here to a team that's never won the Super Bowl and having an idea of how to get to greatness. And it didn't look like any of us thought it would look. But when I saw it, I recognized it. And I like it. And so far, so good. I'm on Team Gladstone. I'm going to show you a sign of improvement. A sign of improvement is you can't really find a whole bunch of glaring weaknesses on this team in 1 year. But there are a lot of people to thank for that. Trent Baalke's one of them. I hope y'all didn't wreck y'all car when y'all heard me say that. But I'm being honest with you. I never said Trent was, well, I probably did say Trent was awful. I ain't going to sit here and try to lie to y'all. But I did say Trent did some nice things. I just said he took them from where they were. They won 9 games 2 years in a row. And that's as far as he can take them because then they regressed and went back the other way when he started trying to, get it to that next point. That's not what he can do. He did what he's supposed to do. Now it's time for somebody else. Signs of improvement is the fact that you can't find a whole bunch of holes in this defense and this team or his offense either. We're going to try that in segment 3. But segment 2, I'm going to show you some more signs of improvement. One of them is you had a GM that I've always said on this show that they look at drafts 2 years in groups of 2. I'm going to tell you something that they did by getting Travis Hunter that makes a ton of sense to the people out there that's saying, I can't believe they gave up next year's first round pick. I had to come around. And if I can come around at my age, y'all can come around at your age. We'll talk about it here in a second on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. There is absolutely nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Did you see the Lakers in Minnesota last night when the Lakers made that run and came back and hit that shot that put them ahead? Didn't last long, but it was very, very exciting. And the best place to be is at the game, and the best place to make sure you can get to that game is at game time, because game time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. Here's why I choose Game Time, because we can save the 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and whatever else you want to attend. The all-in pricing means no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you get and what you pay. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time and download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, moving along here on Locked On Jaguars. Glad you guys can join me for 30 minutes every day like you always do. We definitely appreciate it. Let's get back to it, man, and talk about something that I referenced right before I went to break. And that is that the boldness and the criticism from some to James Gladstone for paying a price and moving up for Travis Hunter. And there's been some fairness to some of the criticism, and I'll tell you what that is. That's the people who are viewing this through the lens of he's a number one wide receiver, but you had Brian Thomas Jr. on a rookie deal, so you're putting yourself in a situation that everyone is criticizing right now about Cincinnati, where if you're looking long term, that 5 years from now you're going to have two players playing in the same position room that by then may be making $150 to $200 million a year, and people wondering how you're going to make it happen. Well, that's a problem they'll deal with when they get there. The other thing is Travis Hunter is not just a wide receiver. He's also an elite corner. And he's one of the most elite players that we've seen come into the NFL in a long time, and unique. When I say they look at drafts 2 years in a row, here's one thing that you have to consider. If they look at this year and next year's draft, where would Travis Hunter be drafted next year in a draft that they consider strong? Mind you, not including quarterbacks, because quarterbacks are different. Travis Hunter right now is a better player, I think, than Cam Ward, but Cam Ward plays a position that has more value, so he went higher. And next year they're talking about maybe 2 or 3 of those guys being up there. So not including quarterbacks, because the Jags are committed to Travis Hunter. They're committed to Trevor Lawrence. So they wouldn't even be looking at quarterbacks. I would dare say this, that if Travis Hunter had gone back to college, he'd have won a Heisman a second time, and the hype train would have been through the roof, and he would have dominated those kids. If he dominated the dudes that were older than him, he's definitely going to be dominating kids that he's the same age or older than him. He would have been an upperclassman. This has been his 4th year in college, which is his natural senior year. They weren't going to be able to do nothing with him. The hype train would have been over, the awards and all of that stuff. It would have been through the roof. He'd have been considered the greatest college player probably to ever play. And where would he go picked? Where would he get picked? Non-quarterbacks, he's number one again next year. So what the Jaguars did, they don't have a pick in the first round next year yet. They got a guy in this year's draft that in any draft could be the number one non-quarterback picked. In any draft that I remember, he's the number one non-quarterback picked. I do think in 2 years when Jeremiah Smith enters the draft, that's going to change. But still, because I think Jeremiah Smith is that good. But even he only plays one side of the ball, but one side of the ball he can play, and he can play it well. But for right now, what the Jaguars have managed to do is get one of about 3 projected surefire players where they picked 5th. They got one of them. And they got the one that they wanted. They got the best guy. They didn't trade up to the Giants to get Abdul. No, just one guy that they wanted to go up for. This year, next year, last year, 4 years from now, doesn't matter. And that's Travis Hunter. They managed to do that. They got a dynamic player in any year's draft. In a draft, they got him in a draft where people said there was only 2 or 3 dynamic players. Now, next year, when the Jaguars don't have a number 1 draft pick yet, what they have is second and third round picks, multiple third round picks, and second round picks in a draft that is considered strong. You see my point? My point is they gave up a second round pick this year in a draft that wasn't as strong to move up to get a player that they would not have gotten had they not done that. And the player that they got is the best non-quarterback you can imagine the team picking, regardless of need, because he plays 2 positions and he's very, very good at both of them. And then you add in all the off-field stuff and the commercials and Travis Hunter and the attention. We get it. But I'm talking about just a functional, what's going to make, commercials ain't going to make this worth it. What's going to make this worth it, and we ain't worried about ticket sales right now because, well, they are, but not really because they're tearing the stadium down. So the main thing that they're trying to do here, and by the time they sell tickets to the new stadium to the extent that it's going to really make a difference, we'll have a good sample size of Trevor Lawrence improving. We'll have a better sample size of whether Travis Hunter is worth it and Brian Thomas Jr. and all of that stuff. So it's the beginning of a long process. But signs that they're improving is when you look at it just from a logistics standpoint, they got something that they weren't in position to get. That on any given draft is a great thing. And they don't currently have a number 1 pick in a strong draft from next year, but they anticipate it's going to be a very late pick in that draft in the 20s. But they have extra picks. They also have some guys that may be expiring their contracts this year. They also have more competition on their team, so they might be a team that is active in shipping guys out before the trade deadline. They also could do the same thing next year that they did this year if they have big enough holes on that defense. They could move around and maneuver and move up. And we haven't even thought about this part of it. What if they hit on their day 3 picks this year? What if they not only get great play out of Travis, but they turn around in the 3rd round and they get great play out of their 3rd round picks? And then 1 or 2 of those picks on day 3 turns out to be a major, major contributor. So what if Wyatt Milliam is your starting guard at some point this year? He's your starting left guard to go along with Travis Hunter. What if you had a linebacker? What if Jack Kaiser turns out to be a really, really good replacement? And you look at him, you say, okay, the 2 guys that's going to be free agents. By the way, Devin Lloyd did not get his 5th-year option. We kind of knew that, though. That's why we didn't make a big deal out of it. They didn't pick up Devin Lloyd's 5th-year option. Chad Mooma's a free agent after this year. I think Ventrell Miller's going to be a free agent after this year. What if Jack Kaiser shows up and all of a sudden he's like, well, we found us another off-ball linebacker? What if these safeties are good? What if these dudes can play? What if both of those running backs turn out, you can let go of Travis Etienne and now you start swapping some dudes out at the trade deadline? What if one of those tackles turns out to be, better than you thought? What, and you can move around and move off of a certain part of your team now without hurting it. And then you start getting more 2nd and 3rd round picks. If James Gladstone hits on day 2 and day 3 picks, ain't nobody going to be tripping about them not having a 1st round pick next year because the draft will be stronger and their 2nd and 3rd round picks will be like 1st and 2nd round picks this year. So the signs of this team improving shows you how a team thinks and how they move. It's not faking it till you make it. They are attacking this thing with every single prong they can. They're doing it from free agency. They're doing it from evaluating their own players. They're not picking up 5th-year options. They're not married to past draft choices that they have to feel like they need to honor. The only thing that they ain't done that they can't do right now is change out and swap Gabe Davis out for something because it's going to cost them too much money. And I guarantee you that if they get a chance to free up enough cap space to swap Gabe Davis out and they don't have a reason to keep him on this team, they'll figure out a way to do that too. What other holes on this team do they have? We need to, they say, pause, Wig, man, you put them in the Super Bowl. No, I'm not. I'm just saying they're on the right track. Let's talk about the holes on this team and what realistically we can expect, at least from a roster standpoint, before we even know about scheme. We'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Oh my God, man. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn on any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play it's included, and you're ready to go. Dive into hundreds of premium titles, including EA Sports College Football 25, to Call of Duty, and easily as you can stream your favorite shows. What if you could jump into your favorite Xbox titles without needing your console in every room? Woo! That would make a lot of people's day super, super happy. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass, Ultimate subscription, and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K, second generation, Fire TV 4K Max, first and second generation, and Fire TV Cube, third generation. Third and final segment here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. We appreciate you hanging in with us, sticking in and listening to these conversations that we have from the barbershop that is the Wiggins Studio here on North Main Street in Jacksonville, Florida. So holes on this team, perceived holes in the roster, without knowing scheme, without knowing how they're going to use people, without knowing any of that stuff. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, I can tell you right now, just from a commitment standpoint and from what I know about the players that they went out and got and what I optimistically believe about the players that are already here, that Emmanuel Okba signing really, really helped the perception, at least roster-wise, when you're looking at it, of the Jacksonville Jaguars being in a better place and actually having enough really, really good players at critical positions in order for them to line up correctly and be able to play with all of the fervor and the depth that you need in order to be a really, really good football team. I do, because that would have been the one thing that people brought up. They would have talked about the fact that the Jaguars don't have the depth and the experience at edge in order for this team to properly field a really, really good football team. I'm trying to check here real quick and see if they've updated the depth chart. They haven't changed that depth chart one bit from prior to the draft. And I don't even believe they added the free agents. They haven't even added the free agents on the team website for the depth chart. We can take a guess as to what it's going to be, but the thing about this team that I'm concerned about, without knowing the coaches, and somebody on the team, somebody who's actually a shot caller, really told me, you're going to love this offensive line, Coach Wig. That wasn't a shot at Phil Rauscher, but it was kind of a shot at Phil Rauscher. You're just going to love this dude. Like, they ain't talking about the problems. They talking about the solutions. Offensive line coach is smart as hell. You're going to love him. You're going to love his thought process and the way he goes about it. And he's just going to be. When I heard that, I was like, okay. That means Anton Harrison is the dude that I'm really, really expecting a whole bunch out of. And I brought him up because he's the third-year player. And he showed a lot of promise as a rookie by playing hurt. And then he came back a second year when he was supposedly healthy, and he didn't play as well. So now it's really about this for me. Can the new brass, in terms of the coaching staff, extract enough out of Anton Harrison that he is not just okay, that he's a strength as a first-round player? And that's either at left tackle or right tackle. Walker Little, they have to really, really keep him healthy, keep him upright, and decrease the variance between really, really good Walker Little and not so good Walker Little, right? They have to do that. He has to be more consistently good. And the numbers and the stats bear out that he wasn't as bad as a lot of people give him, fits about being. So I think the offensive line is going to be fine with the 5 additions and the new coaching. If there's a hole on this team, and I hate to say this, I'm going to say the change in health and another coach might help, because the person I'm going to mention has been like the Walker Little of defense, and that's Tyson Campbell. There's a lot of competition now in this defensive backfield. I think they think Tyson Campbell's a really, really good player, right? Young, athletic, long, fast corner that competes at a high level. And when he's played his best, he's played pretty damn good, right? The problem is when he gets hurt and injured and then he comes back and he's not 100%, that's when he has not looked the same. He fixed some of the ball issues that he had, right? Tracking and following the ball when the ball was in the air. Now it's just about his availability, and they got to figure out through strength and conditioning a way to keep him on the field, man, because that's the only way they're going to get a true evaluation of him. He has a big contract. They need big production out of Tyson Campbell. So if I'm breaking the huddle coming out and I'm on offense, I'm finding number 32, and I'm saying that's where I'm attacking him. And then I want to see if they can stop the run too. I want to see if they've done enough to stop the run. Those are my main 2 issues and the 2 things that I worry about most with the Jaguars defense. And on offense, a little, not really concerned, but I am sitting back with my arms crossed saying, okay, let me see with the offensive line and what the offensive line coach is able to do. Inconspicuous in his absence is Trevor Lawrence. I'm not worried about Trevor Lawrence one bit. I think the fact that he's going to get better coaching. See, this is the thing with me. And I said I was going to do a Trevor show. I'm going to do that tomorrow. I'm going to do that to give that all y'all weekend for y'all to think about it. In fact, I actually recorded a segment of it already. And then I stopped it. I said, I got to say something else before I talk about that. So I'm probably going to just go back and record the whole thing all over again. But what you're going to get is a situation where I believe Trevor Lawrence is going to improve the same way Baker Mayfield did, the same way some other quarterbacks around the league have done, that once the things around him improves, then he'll rise and start to improve too, because he's going to take the pressure off of himself just a little bit. And he's just going to be not necessarily a system quarterback, but you're going to, even when you have a guy that is supremely talented, you still need a system around him. Patrick Mahomes has a system around him that works. You don't think they are very, very exact and very, very efficient with what they do in their processes under Andy Reid? Yeah, they are. And the thing about Jaguars is people go, oh, Trevor, this. You wanted Balky fired, but you also wanted, I tell you what, way more than I heard Trent Balky getting fired, I heard Press Taylor got to go. So if the dude you talked about leaving the most is gone, and they bring somebody else in who has a track record of being really good with quarterbacks, and Udinski too, the offensive coordinator, along with Liam Cohen, how come you can't leave room for yourself to believe that Trevor's going to improve when you beg for them to get rid of Press Taylor like he was the Antichrist? At some point as a fan, you got to stop swinging at everybody, man, and really start pinpointing some of this anger. It's like you said Trent was bad, and you said Doug was bad too. Well, Doug was coaching bad teams put together by Trent, but he also could have been bad and it made it worse. And then you said Press was bad. They get rid of everybody, and now you think that the player that you don't think is good is still not going to be very good, even though all of those people that you blame for them not being good are gone. At some point, it becomes like, what are we doing here? I'll tell you what we're doing here on Locked On Jaguars, man. Every single day, we're dropping this heat for you for 30 minutes and bringing you along on what's happening with the Jaguars. But if you want to know what's going on around the league with these rosters, with the depth chart, so you know how to draft your players for fantasy football and your dynasty leagues, and you just want to know who's out there for the Jaguars to maybe go get, well, that's why you need Locked On NFL Scouting with Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino. These guys do deep dives across the NFL on all of these rosters, and they let you know things that other people just are not privy to knowing because they don't do the work. Make sure you tap into Locked On NFL Scouting with Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino. each and every day and make it your second listen. All right, Tony Wiggins here with Locked on Jaguars. We're going to talk Trevor Lawrence tomorrow to get you ready for the weekend. Thanks for joining me for 30 minutes. We'll see you next time.